It's not a movie for critics, or gamers, film lovers, or 99% of carbon-based life forms. It has all the grace and acuity of a drunk person attempting to place a 3 a.m. chicken nugget order. Is there any way out of here that doesn't involve garbage? Yes, there is, Lilith. Just follow the signs marked exit at the rear of the theatre. Borderlands, alternative title, Red 3. The main actresses in this are retired and extremely dangerous to themselves. I'm surprised one of them didn't break a hip.
God, I hate this planet.
Yes, the main priorities of this movie was clearly to make sure that the men had nothing to interest them at all. The action is crap, the people are old.
What are you doing? I needed a guidance.
And the storyline and emotive points are entirely feminine. Women are in charge of literally everything in this universe, and the men are entirely there to be humiliated. The plot also seems to be ripped straight out of Captain Marvel, where the main story is that the women just find out they were powerful all along.
There's only one of you in the world, and you're special.
Seriously, if you reach this age and can't work out that you can teleport, I'm going to assume you're retarded. Also, while the game Borderlands is known for its humour, this movie hasn't been funny for a single second of its existence. Much like Jack Black, who is also in this movie.
What's happening right now?
He plays Claptrap, who is just an annoying stain on the movie that you wonder why anybody keeps around. Much like Jack Black. Jack Black's robot Claptrap is the most annoying space character since Jar Jar Binks. It won't be much of a surprise then that this movie started with 0% reviews on Rotten Tomatoes out of the first 10, which as rotten just means below average. Definitely accurate, it's the score it deserves. In no way, shape or form is this movie average. Of course, as time went on, more movie reviews came in. That's how we ended up at 4% fresh out of 25 reviews, which translates to literally one critic out of everybody marking it as above an average movie. And can you guess who that one was? It was Grace Randolph, everybody, yes. I've never played the games, but I got a kick out of Blanchett starring in a movie like this. This is somebody who watched the movie and just went, I know her! Fresh. That's the kind of media criticism that gets you in the mainstream.
It's Pete. It's Pete.
It's in my mouth!
Cate Blanchett was doing a great job. Even with that, I wonder if we saw the same movie. Blanchett doesn't bother to act for the entire movie. Now, admittedly, this might be the directing, not her fault. And while normally I wouldn't accept that as an excuse, in this, she's clearly going for some kind of stoic girl boss attitude, which is very Hollywood. Stoicism works for men, but for anybody else, it just comes across as if you're phoning it in. Another problem that we saw from Captain Marvel kind of acted the same way.
If you go hunting for it, you'd better take any help you can get.
I do wish the script had been adjusted to be a bit better to accommodate her age. How about we accommodate the actress to the character in the script?
How many people have died looking for this vault?
Let's face it, if they put attractive people in this movie, it still would have been as bad, but the audience would have definitely been more entertained. Blanchett fans will enjoy this. Not sure about anyone else, though. If you go to a movie simply because name exists in it, you'll like it. So the 5 Blanchett fans that see this movie will enjoy it. Everybody else will hate it. Fresh. Personally, I don't even think Blanchett fans will enjoy this, because if you enjoy her acting, well, in this, she doesn't do it. And to be fair, nor does anyone else. I mean, Kevin Hart tries, but he's just always Kevin Hart. And to be honest, the person who put the most effort into the movie would be Anna Greenblatt, who played Tiny Tina. And I've also just found out she was young Ahsoka Tano in the Ahsoka series, who is actually far better in the lightsaber fights than Ahsoka was. She would have died at least twice there. So to me, it's bizarre to praise Cate Blanchett. Just goes to show there really is no accounting for taste, is there? And don't come back! But as time marches on and more people saw the movie, the score did indeed improve for Borderlands. Slightly, anyway, yeah, 7% out of 61. I think that's 2 positive reviews now. From Maria. Probably could have guessed that one myself. Borderlands won't be remembered as a great video game adaptation. Fresh! I mean, sometimes things don't need commentary, but I think we have found the Borderlands audience. Namely, if you're the kind of unhinged person who really loves progress and should be kept behind a wall in California, you'll like it. It was made for you. That really is the kind of message and morality of the movie. My favourite bit out of all of it is how a woman leads the military for the villain. And I don't need to describe the villain to you. You already know what he looks like. He's the villain. You won't see anyone else that looks like him in the entire movie, except as the villain. But the leader of his military, who chases the poor innocent heroes, well, that is Janina Gavankar. Somebody who used to be a Lothario in the L Word. whose mother was originally from India. What a surprise, Hollywood made her the leader of an evil military. That's a bit unusual and outside of the box for them, isn't it? Normally, you would assume somebody of that persuasion to be a good guy. Maybe that's why, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, she suddenly goes, "Oh no, I can't persecute you," and then sides with the heroes for no reason whatsoever.
Sheer f***ing hubris.
And talk about repent on your deathbed. The moment she decides to, "I can't stand by as this evil is done to these innocent people," and walks over to them, she just immediately dies. Like, this is a Darth Vader ethical U-turn that happens so fast you'll get whiplash. And you'll be halfway through the thought, wait, why did she even switch? What on earth is going on? But it doesn't matter, the movie just carries on at record speed in the first place. This movie barely ever stops. Even though when you think about it, absolutely nothing happened. It's bizarre. I have never seen an action movie with this many action scenes that had so little action in it. And unfortunately, for that description to make sense, you have to have seen the movie. Because if I say shooting and action scenes, you might think of something of John Wick, where you can actually see people fighting other people. Whereas in this, for like 60% of all action scenes, you don't see anybody fighting other people. What you see is the camera on a person shooting either at the camera or off camera.
You get a bullet? You get a bullet?
There's no other people in the pissing screen. Quite often that'll happen for a long time, and there'll just be people rolling over boxes or vaguely aiming in the direction of people while they CGI muzzle flare onto the end of the weapon. And then we just cut to the final image of everybody on the floor. There's even a bit where they try to go for the heroic sacrifice of Kevin Hart. "Oh no, we need to go in an elevator, but there's a button over there that needs to be pushed, and it has to be done manually." Yes, this movie has every single trope that has ever existed throughout all of cinema in it.
With a mob of revolting peasants.
So then, after everyone goes up the elevator, he stands and fights valiantly against a horde of, well, evil people of my complexion, where he shoots loads of them before they overwhelm him behind a wall. Cut to the end of that sequence where they're all dead and he's alive, and you have no idea why or how, considering the amount of people that literally gripped onto him. This plot moves on so fast that if you have to pop out to the bathroom for 90 seconds and come back, the entire story, motivations, and allegiances of all the characters might have just randomly changed, and you'll have no idea why. Then again, if you're in the cinema watching the movie, you'll probably still have no idea why. This movie is so bad that I think the 47% of people who think this movie is greater than a 5 just have really low standards. They're like, well, could be worse. I could have been in a 4D screen where they literally just sprayed piss on me.
It's in my mouth!
And I am not a massive Borderlands fan, so when people go, even ignoring the failure of adaptation, this is pretty dreary stuff, entirely accurate. It doesn't matter whether you like Borderlands or not, it's just a bad movie. But I'm sure if you like Borderlands, it's going to be worse. There is no upside here. Blanchett finds herself in probably the worst film of her career. However, she's about the only one who can salvage even a speck of integrity. No! Why is everyone praising Cate Blanchett? One of the worst things about the movie. She is the main character. She is the eyes from which you view the entire world, the entire scenario. And she's the hero who's too thick to realize that she can teleport, despite being on the world for so long. It's farcical. She's actually in this movie. 21-year-old in this role. I'm like, oh yeah, well, they're really young. Maybe it's happened just as they've matured into adulthood. They've got these powers. They sort of come of age into the powers. Fair enough. And then at least you would have had some eye candy as a main character. But if you're 55 before you realize your genetic powers, well, now you're just retarded. And as I've said before, but I think it bears repeating, she doesn't act the entire movie. Ben Rasselman thinks that Claptrap is funny. I don't understand American humor, so sometimes I don't know whether something isn't funny or if it's just American humor. In this, I'm 99.9% sure it's just not funny.
Actually, it's helping. Are we really ready for this to finish? Keep looking at me!
Eli Roth's haphazard direction, terrible script, and truly disastrous ending turns a nondescript sci-fi adventure into a truly awful Borderlands movie. The ending. Oh boy, shall we talk about the ending? Like I say, straight up stolen from Captain Marvel. She finds out that she has superpowers and then gets given even more superpowers. The story of this movie is basically women need to realize their own power. The issue is the villain has a spaceship, and every time it hits her, it really hurts. She fights the spaceship rather than the villain because he's got a shield around him that she can't penetrate. Can you see where I'm going with this? In that if the villain has an impenetrable shield, his spaceship probably does too, right? That's pretty good odds. So knowing this information, her 200 IQ plan is to fly head first into the ship. The one time she gets truly defeated in this fight is because she voluntarily flies into a shield with her own face.
But there's something dangerous about those women.
Knocks herself out, because you can't have a villain of that category defeat a woman. It can't happen. And so the only way she can be defeated in a fight is if she defeats herself. And they don't realize that this makes her look retarded, just like the rest of the movie. Infuriatingly sloppy, intensely awful, hopelessly derivative, scraping the bottom of the barrel. The FX are not great. Oh yeah. Well, sometimes in this, the CGI is passable. Most of the time, it's truly awful. And that is a problem in this movie, when there's so much of it. Loud, inane, and overproduced mess. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy, except set in a wasteland, without any soul, humor, or imagination. You could have just gone, it's like a wasteland. Borderlands should be called The Bored and the Bland. Shameless rip-offs of Star Wars and Mad Max. I still say the story is more Captain Marvel than any of those. The Toronto Star comes up with my favorite term of all time, sci-fi gobbler. I don't even know what that's meant to mean. Also, you can't just write God, you know. God, awful. Terrible writing, indifferent acting, and stupefying boredom. It feels like nothing could top it for badness. I feel like this guy has invented, just new words for his review. Why is he appearing twice again? This happens a lot on Rotten Tomatoes. Like the original first-person shooter, Borderlands has been set on a planet that has since been overrun by violent marauders and women with formidable push-up bras. I mean, to be fair, they needed them when they're all over 55. Okay, we have found some more positives. Julian at MovieWeb. All-star cast, suffice open-minded fans. This is somebody who clearly leads the bigot army, isn't it? Oh, well, I mean, if you don't like it, you're just not open-minded enough. Don't be open-minded. It's horrific and evil. You actually don't want an open mind. What you want is a closed mind on the correct things. Why would anyone want to be open-minded to evil and get predictably trashed by highbrow critics? Which would be anybody who's got taste. Do you just see someone working in Hollywood and bend over? Then Borderlands is for you. You won't be able to walk for a week. The beloved first-person looter shooter and its players won't be disappointed. I'd also like to point out that Julian, despite his glowing praise, also gave it a 2.5 out of 5. You won't be disappointed with this trash. That's the lowest score I think you can give while still giving it fresh. Borderlands rushes through too many plot points for its own good, but is saved by its likable cast. This is why men and women are entirely different. Men care about things, women care about people. Oh, look, it's got this person in it. I like them socially. Fresh. What about the movie, though? What about the piece of entertainment you're supposed to be talking about? I don't know. I just like the people. I'm social. Even The Guardian doesn't like it, and they like breadlines. Blanchett deserves credit for not shrinking from a task so far beneath nothing. Nothing is beneath her. We discovered that in this movie. She didn't meet the minimum line to be called an actress in this movie. You're only as good as your previous role, and in this, she proves she can't act. This film, instead, is a lazy bricolage. I swear these people make up stuff for their reviews to sound intelligent. The construction or creation from a diverse range of available things. So in other words, this film, stealing from other movies, is cobbled together by so-called creatives who appear to not care, or by somebody who should clearly know better. I don't think the director knows better. My first impression, literally while the credits were rolling, was Borderlands is like somebody made a movie after only hearing about movies. The villain dies to the line, "I have what men like you will never have." Enough.
You've got all that power, but there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
It was genuinely like the director had just been told the scripts and the storylines of various other movies and just used them.
Yes, we know.
We know everything. Thanks.
And you know nothing.
But he couldn't understand what was good or bad about those stories, why those stories were told in the first place, or the things that happened in the movies that gave stories some kind of emotional resonance. It was like somebody going through the actions, but they didn't understand why they were going through them. They thought the actions were enough. And as Hollywood creators go further and further down modernity, I think we'll see more of this, not less. You'll see people simply imitating things from the past that they didn't understand, but because they don't have life experience, all their information comes from watching these previous things. It's almost like somebody in an apocalyptic wasteland who keeps plugging their computer into the wall. There's obviously no electric there, there's no power plants running, but they don't know or understand anything about power plants. They don't know how to make it work. All they know is, I like using a computer, and the computer works when I plug it into a wall. And they lack the greater knowledge of electricity or power plants in order to actually get the impact of it. That's what Borderlands is. This is somebody who seems to have watched movies, but has absolutely no idea why they were good. It's not a movie for critics, or gamers, film lovers, or 99% of carbon-based life forms. Another review praising Cate Blanchett that makes me wonder if we saw the same movie. The definitive worst film of Roth's career, and another strike against AAA games being brought to the big street. No. And it's another strike against Hollywood, it's another strike against Roth, and it's another strike against hiring people who have absolutely no idea or care what they're doing because they think, I'm in cinema and that's just gaming. The people in Hollywood need to realize that they have to get down on their hands and knees and beg at the feet of the almighty video game industry. That their industry is pathetic and broken. It's not a strike against video games. This is a strike against Hollywood hiring the same people they've always hired, so they're getting the same results they've always had. What Hollywood needs is to hire people who actually know what they're doing. It basically means new blood at this point. It has all the grace and acuity of a drunk person attempting to place a 3 a.m. chicken nugget order. It's one of Roth's weakest films. Well, I mean, if this is one of his weakest, hate to look at the rest of them. It's impressive that Roth can elicit the poor 2000s video game adaptation energy, yet forget the discernible sense of fun or style that made them stand out. Throughout all of this, you may be wondering why I've not spoken much about the plot. Well, there's barely one, that's why. Blanchett gets hired by a CEO to rescue his daughter from kidnapping. She almost immediately meets Claptrap, then Tiny Tina. After they fight, the military come to rescue her and they escape. Then, the next thing, they're together. And I mean, this literally switches over in about 90 seconds to the point where suddenly we're all allies. We're against the guy that hired me, despite the fact that he was going to pay her an absolute fortune, and she's a bounty hunter who should care more about the money. And so now we're off to find keys and a vault for reasons, basically. Over the time, Tiny Tina finds out that she can teleport. Then Blanchett finds out that she can teleport. What was the one who was actually designed to open the vault to get superpowers and defeats the villain? Well, I say get superpowers, it's basically she had the superpowers in her all along. I was destined for this. Some snobs in Hollywood will go, well, of course it doesn't have a plot. It's a video game movie. Those people have never played video games. The bar for video game movies has been staggeringly low, but this is a horrendous waste of time, talent, and pixels. Go play Borderlands. Watch 6-hour gameplay videos of it on YouTube. Go get several chlamydia tests back to back. Every one of those options are far more useful and far less painful than this. In Borderlands, all the heroes do is inform each other. They're insane and deranged. There's a scene where they all accidentally consume urine. Another extended bit where the robot defecates bullets.
Can't go if you're looking at me. Actually, scrap that. I can. I really can.
Well, the insults don't venture beyond the range of poopy-mouthed ass face. The weirdest part about that is 2 of those jokes are actually in the trailers, and they're just as unfunny in the movie as they are in the trailers. This isn't a context applies thing. This is, no, that's just the level of the movie. No one in the film or the film itself ever acknowledges how deeply uncool. Is it uncool? Or is it just an unfunny, untalented person with the level of humor of a 3-year-old? I am genuinely surprised Taika Waititi didn't make this movie, because this is a Taika Waititi movie. It's a race to the bottom. Its sacrilegious treatment of place and character will send its fans into a white-hot rage. Depressingly bare, as if somebody put a Mad Max filter on a paintball center. If you're a fan of the video games, Borderlands may strike terror into your heart. Even Cate Blanchett must have seen this coming. She told Empire magazine she took it during lockdown madness. I was in the garden using the chainsaw too much. My husband said, this film could save your life and kill your career. And still, I don't think any of that is an excuse for the fact that during this movie you didn't act. Borderlands was made by Eli Roth, not known for his comedy, who bashed away at this much delayed debacle during lockdown before fleeing to make a different movie. Tim Miller was brought in to do reshoots, but by then it was evidently too late to save, feebly trained in tropes filched from countless other sci-fi properties. In any successful industry, those 2 paragraphs alone, that situation alone, would be enough to make somebody never work again. Not in Hollywood, though. It's seemingly more difficult to get someone fired from Hollywood than they are as a teacher. Unless, of course, they say some kind of moral opinion, in which case they need to go. Oh, and also, I've never really mentioned Jamie Lee Curtis. It's because there's no point to her being in the movie. And again, she shouldn't be in the movie. If you're gonna have a woman that pointless be in the movie, at least make her attractive. Make her a supermodel in her early 20s, and it's a different role. The dialogue is so wooden, it could be used for a bonfire. Much like Cate Blanchett's acting. Padded with exposition, including shrugged-off voiceovers from Blanchett. Is there any way out of here that doesn't involve garbage? Yes, there is, Lilith. Just follow the signs marked exit at the rear of the theatre. In 2024, there is no lack of competition for the bottom of the barrel. Borderlands now sits among other great titles that have been released this year, such as Rebel Moon the Director's Cut, Madame Web, and The American Society of Magical Racists, which I never saw because if I wanted to live in that world, I'd move to London. But it is the question of which one of these is worse for 2024, because Borderlands is definitely worse than Rebel Moon, and I'd even say it's worse than Madame Web, because Madame Web, well bad, still hung together as a movie, and was still entertaining, even accidentally, whereas Borderlands doesn't even hold together as anything. I've never seen anything move at such faster pace while having absolutely nothing happen in it. And so, when you combine that with peak modern-day Hollywood, their values, morals, and storyline, the terrible acting, the comedy that isn't funny even accidentally. I mean, Willow was a comedy, and that was at least funny accidentally. She-Hulk was more funny accidentally, and I think for me, Borderlands is definitely the worst movie of the year. Well, at least out of the ones I've seen. And yes, I actually don't watch that many movies, but I do watch most of the bad ones. But for now, that's it from me. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like the video, subscribe, more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.